Welcome to Inside Ag from Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture. I'm Shelby Varner. It's no secret that Kansas is really dry right now and it's impacting the agriculture industry. So, in to talk about it today are Kansas Farm Bureau members Kent Moore from Pratt County and Nathan Kells from Haskell County. Nathan, getting started with you, can you describe a bit about what your operation is in Haskell County?
We are fifth generation farmers here, but back in about 1998, we decided to go into raising dairy heifers, replacement dairy heifers for a family operation that has started the dairy. Since that time, we have grown into a commercial operation now where we have about 28,000 head of replacement dairy heifers, but with the farm growing to about 10,000 acres. So majority of our farm produce goes to feed the heifers, but obviously we have to pull a fair amount from local farmers around here as well for our needs to feed everything.
What battles have the drought enhanced on your operation?
Well, number one right now is we use a lot of filler in our ration, and that can be many things. That can be cotton burrs, can be wheat straw, can be corn stalks, milo stalks, but we need a dry, low quality feed to mix in with the ration to grow these heifers. And typically we kind of split up our needs between wheat harvest and fall harvest. We feed about 17,000 tons of this dry product a year. There was no wheat straw to be had this year. We bought less than probably 100 tons of wheat straw. The prices were getting higher at the time, and we should have paid a little bit more at the time, obviously, in hindsight, because now here we are going to run out here pretty much the end of the month with all our old crop. So we've been buying up anything that we can, but with the fuel cost increasing, that transportation side of things, it has gone, not quite doubled in our cost on this dry ration stuff, but we can't even find anything. So to buy it, and no matter what price it is. So we, on our own farm, have swapped down some forage sorghum that we were planning to chop for silage, just to try to get it drying that we can put up as dry feed. We also started swathing some probably failed milo this week for the same reasons that we've got to have some quick dried down feed stuff here to bridge this gap before fall harvest starts with the corn stalks, milo stalks that we would typically buy. So that's been a number one problem right now. Number two is just the overall silage tons. We had one of the worst, maybe the worst triticale harvest this year. We usually put up about 60,000 tons of triticale. That's a wheat rye cross that we chop for silage. And we came in very short this year on that. And we will be short on fall harvest as well for corn and forage sorghum tons as well. So that's kind of the second thing. But all of these obviously have increased prices dramatically on our feed cost.
Is there a way that the drought has directly impacted your production that you receive from your cattle?
We really haven't had any issues on the cattle side. You probably heard the heat issues affecting the beef feedlots out here. We're a totally different animal, totally different ration. So unfortunately, from that side of things, the heat and the dry is actually good for us growing heifers. So that part's good, but the heat really didn't bother us.
Kent, coming over to you, can you share a little bit about what your operation is?
Yeah, we're in the northwest part of Pratt County and primarily irrigated crops. Also have some non-irrigated crops, small cow herd, but no different than Nathan. I mean, our challenge this year has just been lack of rain and then relentless heat throughout basically the entire summer. So that's really put a lot of stress on both non-irrigated and irrigated crops. It just had a real tough time doing well just because it just never got a break. And with rain, never got a real break with temperature, and just that continual stress is going to decrease production, obviously on dry land and even on irrigated. I think we're looking in this part of the state as a below average irrigated crop. And I know Nathan touched on it out there. It's even worse on the irrigated side of things. But for at least this immediate area, at least my dryland corn crop looked pretty good up till about the first part of June. And then we didn't receive any rain after June the 7th. So that left producers in a position where there is no right answer. Whether it be non-irrigated corn or milo or things like that, you're stuck in a position of wondering, well, do I just go ahead and run this through a combine? Do I chop it? Do I put it in a round bale? Then the answer is there isn't no good answer. And it's just kind of what we're stuck with for this year. And on the irrigated side of things, I mean, you just start pushing the limits of what we're allowed to apply water-wise through the state. And that's been something that we just have had to really closely monitor. And we monitor it every year. But this year especially, you know that you're getting towards the end of that certified amount that you're allowed to pump on those acres for this crop year. On the irrigated side of things, there's had to be some hard decisions made about irrigated crops just from the standpoint of lack of water and whether or not you abandon some acres or you shut the water off and go to silage with it. So it's just been a tremendously challenging year, no matter which way you look at it. And again, just no good answers other than it'll rain one of these days. We just don't know when.
While rain is a fantastic thing, it's not a guaranteed, and farmers usually do take precautions for unfortunate years of drought like this one. What are some things you did as a precaution?
First off, on the non-irrigated side of things, you just always, it's always kind of throw a dart on what your plant population is going to be. And we were pretty dry through the winter and dry early spring. So we dialed back on plants per acre on the dryland corn. And that helps some. But, the bottom line is whether you're out there with 13,000 plants or 18,000 plants, if it never rains, it never matters. So, some things like that. You always have crop insurance decisions to make relative to the crop year. And thankfully, we have the access to the crop insurance program that allows us to have a little bit of protection for years like this. It won't make you whole. And, it never will replace 100% of what your potential was, but it is at least a backstop to have a little bit of confidence that you'll at least survive the year and be able to go on to the next one. And that's why it's so important for Farm Bureau and other organizations to continue to emphasize the critical need of the crop insurance program. And, I think that's always probably job one. Any farm bill discussion is that crop insurance component. And then everything else is absolutely secondary to that. So that's kind of how we looked at it here for this year. And at this point, we take what we get and try to figure out a way to move on.
You both mentioned that you would love to have some rain on your operations, but is it too late for rain?
Yeah, well, I guess I'd say it's pretty much never too late for rain. At this point, yeah, it's too late to have any positive impact on a row crop for this year, whether it's irrigated or dry land. If it's toast, it's toast, and it's not going to help much. The concern now is just, we're heading into wheat planting time, and can we get that wheat planted? Can we get it out of the ground? Can we get the ground covered? We need it, and we need it soon.
On our operation, the rain would, is not going to help any corn for sure. It's done. We do have some late planted milo and forage sorghum out here that we would pick up some benefits with the rain. And like Ken said, for fall, looking forward to fall, triticale wheat planting, we desperately need some to get some moisture in there for to have any chance to even get it up, this fall.
So has the lack of rain from this year, is that going to impact your operation as you move forward into the upcoming time?
It does for us. We've been on the irrigated side. We've been declining water out here for years and years, but we're to the point now that a lot of this acres, we're having to go back to a dry land rotation, even under our limited irrigated stuff. We're talking to 400 gallons spread over multiple circles. So that's one change that we're making going forward now, that we've been thinking about it for a couple of years, trying to get by with rain and some lagoon water that we have to pump when it does rain. But we're just going to have to go to a straight dry land rotation under a lot of acres here that, well, for example, we've got 12 circles with about 500 gallons of fresh water to pump. So it really is just a dry land anyways. We've been sneaking by with it, but that's one change we're making going forward.
Right. Yeah, we're definitely in a different groundwater supply situation where I'm at as compared to Nathan. But at the same time, I mean, we recognize that this summer is the demand on that aquifer has been pretty extreme, and at least this area of the state, basically in GMD5, is still pretty blessed with having well capacity that is pretty decent. And quite frankly, we're blessed because of that, but we're also needed because the majority of this irrigated land and land in this area is pretty darn sandy. So our ability to hold any moisture in that profile is pretty limited. And so when we do irrigate, the fact that we've still can maintain some gallons per minute that's respectable makes all the difference in the world. And definitely recognize that we're blessed to have it.
Absolutely. And obviously, you guys have both been in agriculture, and I'm sure have seen changes come about. But how does this drought compare to other droughts you've experienced?
Well, I was in junior high in 1980, and I remember that summer very, very well. I guess the thing about 1980 that I think at least a little bit different this year. In 80, I just remember the wind blew every single day, and you combined it with that 105 to 110 degree heat. It just never ever quit. At least this summer, yeah, we had a lot of stress, way too much stress, but we didn't, at least in this part of the state, we didn't have overly excessive winds that accompanied that heat. That still took a big toll on things. But like I said, the thing I remember about 80 is just the wind was just day after day. So at the same time, when my mom and dad came back here in 1956, they didn't have the moisture to plant a fall wheat crop. So, I mean, it's happened before, no different than Nathan. I'm a 5th generation farmer, and the generations that came prior to us figured out a way. And that's our task also, is to figure out a way to make it work and make it work for our families and communities and go on.
Our drought in 09 started in 09, 10, 11 was worse for us right here at this time. Just got one of those Facebook memories the other day, pops up, but we went over 26 months without a 1-inch rain. And that was just such a long time period. So hopefully this one doesn't stick around as long. However, Dodge City this morning weather put out a chart here showing the driest years, ranked by year in the last 130 years. And our quadrant ranks the driest 127 out of 130 years so far this year. So we were lucky in the spring. We were in a narrow band here that got some rains in May that others didn't get around us. So that's maybe kind of why we escaped some of that drastic, as bad as it is here. Still, we got a little bit in May, but yeah, I just remember the length of that one, and it started in 09 was more severe than right now, but it's definitely getting that way if something doesn't change.
You guys can both see the possibility of life after the drought because you have experienced it. But for someone that's newer to production agriculture, and this might be their first drought they're experiencing, what advice or what information would you want to tell them?
On a personal level, myself, sometimes you just got to get away. This spring in April, I had to get away and head west of the mountains. That's my relief spot to get in the cool and find some running water. But that mental toll is nothing to joke about. So whether that's just talking to other friends, just to share what you're going through is important. And in my opinion, getting away, sometimes far away for a bit, just to get that break, to me is an important factor, other than just knowing that, as the saying goes, we're one day closer to a rain, but sometimes that doesn't help when you're in the middle of it.
Yeah, I'd echo everything Nathan just said. I mean, that he's exactly right. You just have to take a break once in a while and understand that, you individually have done everything you could do. And there's plenty of things that are out of our control, and that's it's just the way it is, and it's the way it's always been, and it's the way it's going to be, and you just accept that fact and have faith that tomorrows are going to be better, and keep marching on.
Absolutely. Thank you guys both so much for taking the time to come on and talk about how drought has impacted your guys' operations.
Yep, you bet.
Thanks for the invite.
That was Kent Moore from Pratt County and Nathan Kells from Haskell County, who are both Kansas Farm Bureau members. Drought is here in Kansas, but as Nathan said, we're always one day closer to rain. If you're interested in understanding more about the drought monitoring process or would like to report your own drought impacts, you can do so by going to eupdate.agronomy.ksu.edu, going to their August 4th agronomy update, and looking for Understanding the Drought Monitor Process. I'm Shelby Varner, and this has been Inside Ag from Kansas Farm Bureau, the voice of agriculture.